Welcome one and all. Welcome back to the old world. Dwarves and wood elves. Ancient enemies ready to do battle once again. And I'm joined on this live stream by the Master Wood Elf himself, Mr. Remington Steele. Good evening.
Yes, we're back for part 3, The Vengeance.
What would you call a high-ranking wood elf anyway?
A high-ranking Glade Lord.
So you're a Glade Lord.
I think probably more of a Glade Sergeant.
Yeah, Glade Private.
Well, what would you call a Dwarf Lord then?
Well, a king, obviously.
Is that what you are?
I would say I'm closer to a king than a thane. Well, we'll see, based on the outcome of this battle. So, people recall in the previous game that we had, the Wood Elves didn't do too well, but there were a few factors that were against them, particularly the terrain setup, with hills in the deployment zones. So, we've made some changes for this game, and Mr. Rem has taken some list advice from the people. And I've made some changes as well to try out some different things, some different style of a dwarf list, different units, and let's see how it goes. So, if we remove the episode thumbnail, you can see the first image of Mr. Remington's army, and you'll immediately see that there is a dragon in there. So that is the biggest change in the list. Let's go through each unit as we see them from left to right here then.
Okay. Right, well, hold on, let me just see. I can't see your picture yet. Let me just... Oh, yes, okay. Oh, yes, so we've got our core units. First up, we've got Glade Riders there. 8 of them. And they have Hagbane tipped arrows, which do an auto wound. Not an auto wound, but they wound you. You still get a saving throw. On a 6, if I roll a 6, and they also have reserve move. So basically, I can run up with my horses, take a shot, and then after shooting, I can move again. So very good for getting out of the way of any potential charges from Andy or getting out of range of any of his shooting.
Yes. Also, people immediately see that we're not at Warhammer World for this game, which is why the terrain is actually fairly nice, and not the 3 bits of garbage terrain we were given while we were there. And you've got some very nice ancient war dancers at the front here, haven't you?
Yes, these are, well, there's most of them are 80s Marauder miniatures.
I've just noticed this one at the back on the left there. Is this one actually leaping into the air with a stick?
Yeah, these were the special edition ones they brought out to show the 3 different types of dances of Loek that the war dancers can do. So there's there's one's called Whirling Death, and the other one's called the Shadows Coil, and they all do different things. Like Whirling Death gives you an extra attack. Shadows Coil, I think it's -1 to hit. But there's 4 dances.
That's a lot of dances to learn.
It is a lot of dances. 4 dances, yeah. Shadow's Coil gives you the 4-up ward save. Of course, these are only in combat. So out of combat, you are vulnerable to shooting. But you are scouts. No, not scouts, skirmishers, yes. So it's -1 to hit skirmishers. You've also got Woven Mist. And that's a -1 modifier to hit in the combat phase. And of course, you've got the... did I say Storm of Blades? That gives you an extra attack. And Whirling Death gives you armor piercing. So some nice little choices you can do round to round in combat. And there were miniatures produced, 3 of them, to show 3 different dances. But I only managed to get 1 of them. So I guess you could say they're highly rare now. Whether they'll bring them out again, I don't know. Who knows?
You never know. On a made-to-order basis, you could see something like that pop up.
Yes.
Right.
Some great minis.
Let's move on to this dragon. So people probably haven't seen this before. So where's the miniature from, first of all?
I got it from your friend Annie.
And that's
Bad Squiddo Games.
Yeah,
but I can't remember the company.
She's stocking the Dungeons and Lasers dragons at that point. I'm not sure whether she still stocks them, but they're still available.
Dungeons and Lasers dragons. I think she showed us 3 or 4 different types of dragon. You picked up one. I picked up the one I picked up. I just thought looked amazing. It's a kind of a bit of a Chinesey dragon, you might say, but it just is beautiful model. I think it was like 20 quid. Couldn't resist it because I love painting big monsters, but it didn't come on the right size base, so I stole a bit of scenery from Age of Sigmar and turned it into a temporary correct size base for my dragon. And below the dragon is its rider, who's just stepped off its mount just for this battle. And he is an eternal champion, another 80s classic model.
So, with this dragon, what are you hoping it's going to bring to your list that you were lacking in the previous game, other than the obvious?
I think in the past, Andy, I've never played enough games to play the meta, so to speak. And the meta of Wood Elves at the minute, there are people saying, bring a dragon. They're really, really good. And so I thought, well, why not? Let's see what all the fuss is about. And I've never actually fielded a dragon before. But I'm really glad I did because it's a lot of fun. So yes, I just caved into what the people expect at the minute. So yeah, why not bring a big monster? Because I haven't done so far so good in the last 2 battles we did. We've just brought elves.
So I think we're going to change your name to Remington Meta Chaser Steel.
You remember the Meta Chaser?
Yeah. So who's this you've got right at the front here?
That is a War Dancer hero who is my favourite. My favourite sort of hero in the game at the moment. That's a Shadow Dancer. I've put him up to a level 1 wizard with illusion. Because if you don't get a spell you really want when you're rolling, you can always get the basic spell, which is called Glittering Robes. Which if you get it off, I think it's on an 8. You have to roll to do that. It gives you a -1 to hit, and also a -1 to hit in whatever unit you've joined. So stick him in with the War Dancers, and they'll have -1 to hit from being skirmishers, and another -1 hit from being cast with the Glittering Robe. So that's the thought there. Just want to try and get him into combat as soon as possible. But he is a bit of a glass cannon because he does only have 2 wounds. And as you know, Wood Elves don't have the best toughness in the world.
No, we've got some more cavalry here as well.
No, more cavalry. Yes, this is. I really enjoy playing these. The second time I've used them in this battle, that's the Sisters of the Thorn. So these. The great thing about this unit is that they've got the 4-up ward save against anything, right? And they kind of collectively count as a wizard, and they can choose 1 spell from battle magic or elementalism. So I chose battle magic, and I chose fireball. They also have javelin attack, and they've got poisoned attacks.
Yes, could be very handy against dwarfs.
Kind of cool. But again, a bit of a glass cannon. All these have got sort of toughness 3. So Andy will be rolling 3s or 4s basically to wound them.
No, we'll go back to some of the units in the back and centre in a moment. But as we get down to the front here, you've got some more classic Wood Elf miniatures.
Yeah, right. Well, I need to catch up with your picture because you are ahead of me.
It's your archer unit.
Ah, right. Okay. So these are Scarlock's Wood Elf archers. These are old 80s. They're brilliant models. So much detail on them. It takes you an age to paint them. It took me almost 40 years to get mine done.
I'm sure you weren't painting them solidly that whole time, to be fair.
No, I wasn't. I had huge gaps in between. I think Jez Goodwin sculptured these ones, if I'm not mistaken. I think, yeah. So, yes, these should be 10 Glade Guard. However, I did put them as 10 Deepwood Scouts in the list.
Does that mean that your list is illegal?
Yes, because the Old World Army Builder didn't tell me that it wasn't illegal. But basically, I paid an extra 10 points to make these Scouts, basically. That's the only difference. So I don't think it mattered too much at the end of the game because they stayed still the whole game.
Well, yeah, they're generally going to archers, aren't they? They're not going to be marching around too much.
Yeah, but I think if they were the Deepwood Scouts, I don't know. I'll have to look whether they have. You see, if they've got fire and flee rule, which they do, yes.
Yeah, so
Deepwood
that could
Scouts
be quite handy then for moving and
yes,
baiting
yeah,
charges.
yeah, or running into the forest, shooting you, and then running out of the forest so you can't see me. If
Yes.
that even makes sense, I could have done some shenanigans. So yes, I did pay an extra 10 or 20 points to make them that, but that was bad.
Now you've got
So
this
sorry.
another unit of cavalry here, 5 of them.
That is my other favourite unit in the Wood Elf army. It's the ultimate glass cannon, you might say. These are the Wild Riders of Kurnos. Each has 1 attack, and the stag has 1 attack, except they have the Furious Charge rule. So that gives them an extra attack, plus they're frenzied, which gives them another attack. And they have a hunting spear, which gives them +1 strength. So you're looking at 3 attacks per rider with +1 strength in the round they charged. I've given them shields as well for that added bit of comfort. So yeah, but if you want to hit them back, they're only toughness 3, 1 wound.
The classic Wood Elf situation, you've got a lot of glass cannons there, so you want to be dealing your damage and not taking too many hits back, ideally. Now, before we get to your big tree man, you've got one more unit of these spear-wielding Wood Elves in the centre there.
Yes, these are... Do you know what? I love this unit as well. These are a solid choice.
Are they all your favourite?
Yeah, I think so. I'm really growing to love this army. Yeah, so they are one of my units of Eternal Guard. I only used 1 in this battle, but I own 2 different units of the Glade Guard. Sorry, the Eternal Guard. These are the old miniatures. I've got some of the newer ones as well, both fabulous designs. But yeah, I've got 15 of them with a standard bearer who holds a magic standard, and that is the Razor Standard. And that will do -2 against your armor saves.
Yeah, very handy again against dwarves probably. And
needed.
Finally, you've got this tree man. Now, last time you kind of shuffled him off to one side during the game, and you didn't really see too much action. So, how is he different this time?
Well, first off, I plan to run him straight down the middle, Andy. Even if you've got loads of war machines, because he's got high toughness, he's got loads of wounds, he's got regeneration. His downside is only movement 5. So you'd think a big monster can stride across the battlefield quick. Not so with the tree man, unless you're going to teleport him. So this time I bowed to the Wood Elf community, who said you should make him a ancient tree man and make him a wizard. So it'll give you much more options. So I did. I made him a level 4 wizard, and I gave him battle magic. So he gets 4 spells, right? I chose the signature Athel Lauren spell, because you're allowed to do that. That is Tree Singing, which is basically a little vortex which puts a forest in front of you and the enemy. Gives it sort of dangerous terrain. Kind of cool. Then I rolled for Fireball, which is awesome. So my Sisters of Thorn have the Fireball spell, and so does the Tree Man Ancient. And then I rolled for Pillar of Fire, which is another vortex, which has AP -2 and D3 +3 strength 3 hits on a blast template remains in play. So I thought, this army is here to singe some dwarf beards.
Yes, that does sound quite terrifying and flaming.
Finally, the final spell I rolled for was an enchantment, and that is the Oaken Shield, which gives them a 5-up ward save.
Okay, now I am making it compulsory because of the character in Dragon Age Origins that whenever you say enchantment, you have to say enchantment.
Enchantment.
Exactly.
I'll do my best. What a great game that was. Great game.
Now, I've spotted another unit in here as well. You've also got an eagle.
Yes. I brought my old Lord of the Rings, 80s Lord of the Rings, that is, eagle. and that he's going to be my giant eagle. Yeah, he is kind of like a larger than life eagle, so I wouldn't quite call him a giant eagle, but yeah,
Still on the
that's the
large
only.
side.
No, it's the only eagle I've got, Andy. So that's getting used to hustle and harry you. It's actually got some decent attacks. I think strength 5 attacks causes fear. It's got no armor save. It has is it 3 wounds? Yeah, it's got 3 wounds, 3 attacks, initiative 4, strength 4, toughness 4, but weapon skill 5. So if it doesn't get shot, it could really sort of hold you up if you've got any really annoying shooting units. That's the plan. It might even. I know you're going to field a gyrocopter, so it could sort of counter the gyrocopter as well.
Yes, and now we're on to the Dwarven forces, the forces of the Dwarven Mountain Holds, and you'll notice immediately that there are no static war machines unless you count the Anvil of Doom, so no cannons, no organ guns, no bolt throwers, no grudge throwers. I'm trying out a list that doesn't have any of them, just to see how it goes and to test some different things out. The other experiment in this list is these 2 little units of Dwarf Warriors, so it's only 40 points for 5 Dwarf Warriors. So potentially using them to redirect or to screen off other units. I've seen people doing it already, and just going to give that a try, see how it goes. And what else is new since the last game? I don't think I had Quarrelers last time we played, because they're freshly painted. So let me pull up my list here on the Old World Builder app. So let's look here at the nice close-ups. So we've got the gyrocopter. The gyrocopter has the steam gun, which is still very handy against wood elves. I have been looking at the other gun options though, and the clatter gun seems to be quite tasty since it's got long range and you can march and still fire it without penalty. So that sounds good. This one's got the steam gun though. I think that's going to be good at toasting some wood elves with their measly toughness 3. Then we've got 5 iron drakes. One of them is the champion with the trollhammer torpedo. So these guys are pretty hot right now, and also they get a ward save against flaming attacks, so your fireball onslaught wouldn't be much use against them. Then we've got some iron breakers. We have got, let's see, we've got 18 iron breakers to be precise, and they have the full command in there, and they're obviously going to house some heroes in that unit. We have got a runesmith, a king, the Anvil of Doom, and a Thane BSB. So we've gone big on the heroes here. So let's tell you which items or which runes have been etched into each one. So the BSB has the Master Rune of Grugni, and that gives the units that he's in a 5+ ward save, and it also gives any other units within 6 inches a 6-up ward in the shooting phase. So extra defensive, nice for the hammerers because they don't have the best armour. And of course the anvil is a good combo with that, since you can boost their armor save with that as well. The runesmith doesn't have anything exciting at all, just in there to provide some extra dispelling. Some extra dispelling that's going to be walking out into the table, not stuck in one spot. And also give some armor bane and flaming attacks to the unit he's with, so that's likely to be the iron breakers. And then we've got a king who's been tooled up defensively. So he's got the Rune of Parrying, which is -1 to hit. The Master Rune of Gromril, which gives him a 2-up save that can't be improved, and the Rune of Preservation, which means that multiple wounds or killing blow will not work against him. So he's going to be very tough to kill, and he's got Leadership 10, so everything else in the army is Leadership 9, so the only way you get anything with Leadership 10 is if you take a king.
Right. A lot of things to remember in this when you've got all these runes on dwarves, aren't they?
Yes, it's a lot of different things, but I think as the meta settles into which ones are the best to go with, it's going to be much easier to remember.
So you've got a big death. Have you done your Death Star yet?
I haven't done the big Death Star of Hammerers at the back here. So the Hammerers, there are 16 of them, and they've been given the Master Rune of Hesitation, which means that if you charge them, you don't get to use any of the special rules associated with charging. So you wouldn't be able to use lances, for example, or if you have a rule that gives you extra attacks on the charge, you wouldn't be able to use those. But
that's not good for my Wild Riders, is it? That's not good. No, don't charge the Hammerers.
But the Hammerers also count as being charged for the purposes of getting their extra attack
Oh Christ!
So it's like a
So
double
if,
whammy.
so if I charge your hammerers, I lose all my bonuses, and you get double the attack.
Yes.
That's crazy, man.
And
Okay.
I've run them quite wide here as well, so they're going to have quite a big fighting rank. So we'll see whether that affects the game at all, their manoeuvrability and such. Then, obviously, the Anvil of Doom. Everyone knows about the Anvil of Doom. It's got various different powers it can use. It can do one per phase. It can give you a better armor save, make you immune to psychology. If you think you're about to be charged by something that causes terror, for example, it can.
But we all know its best ability is it the rune of wrath and ruin?
There's the deadly magic missile attack.
Oh my god!
That dishes out 4d6 strength 4 hits.
Oh my god! So your average roll will be 12, 4 fours, 4 fours, 16. 16 hits at strength 4. Can easily take out a unit per turn. However, you've got to keep out of range, and that range is 27.
I misspoke. It's only 2d6.
Is it?
Yeah, so it's not that scary.
4.
I don't think I have.
4. Bloody hell. Well, still quite scary.
It's still very scary, and it's got an AP of 2 as well.
Oh, well, that's deadly for wood elves anyway, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, it's 27-inch range, so you must stay out of the range of that, or have a really good caster within range to stop it from going off.
Yes.
I think they're the only 2 ways you can really shut this guy down. I mean, a lot of people are saying, oh, yeah, you got to bring your flying units and, get in there with your Warhawk Riders or your Eagles or something. But the problem is this unit is it's got some tasty guards guarding it, haven't they?
They're actually quite good at fighting, good defensively. It's got a ward save, so you can't just tie it up with chaff necessarily. They might not get the job done. So if you want to shut it down, you may have to send something decent in there. Yeah,
7 wounds, is it? Or is it...
It's 5, and you can also use it to give one of your units an extra move as well, which is nice.
Wow.
To get a bit more mobility for the dwarves. Now, we've got some rangers here as well. A unit of 12 rangers with Mr. Bugman representing the unit champion here. And they have all their standard upgrades, so they've got crossbows, great weapons, and shields. So they're quite resistant to shooting. They can dish out some shooting themselves on a higher ballistic skill than standard dwarves. And if you charge them, their great weapons can also strike at you. So quite a dangerous unit, and of course they can deploy anywhere on the table 12 inches from the enemy. So, very nice. Then we move on to the shooting units in the army. So, we have got 12 Thunderers, and they have a champion, and they have a musician, but they do not have a standard bearer. And then we've got 11 Quarrelers, and they also have a champion and a musician, but no standard bearer. So the Quarrelers, the main difference between them and the Rangers, because they have the same crossbow, is that the Quarrelers have 1 lower ballistic skill.
Ah.
Okay, so there are those units, and that's everything. So no cannons, nothing of the sort. We've got these 2 big fighty units, though.
Did you mention your Ironbreaker unit already?
Yes, I did.
Brutal. Okay.
Yes, we've got 2 fighter units, and as we look at the deployment, you'll see, let's see if we've got a bit of an overview here. So, I'll tell you my plan first of all, and then we'll get Mr. Remington's plan with his setup.
Yeah.
So, I've got the anvil out here. There's limited lanes of attack to it, because this house is here. So anyone that wants to attack the anvil has to really come through this area here, where I've got Quarrelers lined up, I've got Iron Drakes ready to strike, because Iron Drakes can just turn around and shoot without penalty. Got the Gyrocopter here. I ideally don't want to be fighting on this difficult terrain. That might not be good, but
no.
I'm thinking that you're going to avoid the anvil anyway.
What made you put the anvil to the left and not in the centre, everyone's asking?
Well, the reason is I want it to be able to see you. So I'm thinking that if I put it in the middle, there's going to be a bit of a blockage when I start moving units forward. As it is here, this unit's going to move, and I'm going to hope to target units that are walking this way with the magic missile. And that's my thinking there. But my plan with these rangers in the middle, because wood elves, generally, you can't force them to engage you easily, because they really just want to sit back, shoot you with bows, run away, dance around you, charge the flanks. They're not just going to charge headlong into hammers and iron breakers in the front, because that would be madness. If I can tempt you to charge into these ranges with something, for example, a
Yes.
dragon or a tree man, or
Yes.
even some of your cavalry, they are then open to a counter charge, especially because any one of those units is unlikely to kill all the rangers in one go.
Yeah.
They just don't have enough attacks. So I've kept them within range of my king and my BSB, so they're less likely to run away. So that means if I get one of those units stuck in combat, I can then do a glorious countercharge with one of my strong fighting units. So that's the
So
plan.
you're thinking a move ahead, aren't you? It's like kind of like chess.
Yes.
Whoever can think the most moves ahead is usually the victor.
And I've got my flanks protected by shooter units. I've got the Thunderers on this hill, so they've gone in 2 ranks, since they'll be able to shoot from the hill. This is the only bit of the hill that is in the deployment zone, so I haven't been able to deploy much on it. I've got my BSB in with the Hammerers to give them the bulk of the ward save, and the Iron Breakers have got the Rune, Smith, and the King to give them a bit of punch. Then we've got 5 Dwarf Warriors in front there, 5 Dwarf Warriors there. So the Iron Drake's hoping to just totally shut down this area, so no flanking funny business coming down this side, and then the Gyrocopter is going to use its pre-game move to move up as well, and then hopefully start dropping some flame templates. That's the overall strategy for the Dwarves. What is the plan for the Wood Elves?
Okay, so I took my time a lot more in the deployment phase of the game, really thinking about where I'm going to put the things down much more seriously than in previous games, because it is crucial. Is where you place your things, particularly against a very shooty army like dwarves can be. Because otherwise their turn 2 and turn 3 is going to absolutely devastate you if you're in range of their shooting. So having said that, I thought, well, if Andy gets the first turn, right, I want to make sure I'm out of range of most of his stuff, so, or he won't see me. So I've stuck the tree man behind the woods, which in hindsight is too far away. I should have stuck the tree man way more forward than that, because he's only got movement 5. And so it's going to take me like at least 2 moves to get into the thick of things there. I put the dragon in the middle, it being sort of high toughness and multiple wounds. I don't think Andy can take me out, at least not in the first turn. So, but I do want to be out of range of his Anvil of Doom. So I've got those 2 guys broadly in the middle. This is the one bit where I did do an illegal move, because you can see the Glade Guard on the hill. Well, I've actually counted them as scouts. I paid for them as Deepwood scouts, but as I mentioned at the start, shouldn't have been able to do that because you have to take Glade Guard. So yeah, they are scouts anyway in this game, and I deployed them on the hill, but they did stay on that hill for the whole game, so take that for just a genuine mistake. I've got my Glade Riders on the far right. What the plan is there, they're going to go through that wood and pepper those Dwarf Thunderers with arrows and try and get round the back. What you can't see, you can see the Eagle, he's going to do the same. Get behind that wood first turn, so you don't have line of sight through the trees. And if you get the first turn, I want to be out of range of your shooting. So, yeah, Sisters of the Thorn are just hanging there. I don't want to put them right up in your face. They're going to be a sort of a supporting unit, if you like. And you can see the Eternal Guard just behind the forest there. So the left of center, they're going to be out of sight for Andy, and they're going to move through that forest. So Wood Elves don't get any penalties when they're moving through cover. So that's kind of cool. I want to get those Eternal Guard into combat because they've got that Razor Standard. One thing we forgot to mention is that I did put the Ruby Ring of Ruin onto my Glade Lord on the Dragon. So that means the Sisters of Thorn, the Glade Lord on Dragon, and the Tree Man all have fireball spells at their command, which I think is going to be tasty.
Yes,
And
especially if you start firing those off at the dwarf units that don't have particularly good armor. I've got a lot of ranged units potentially that you could target with that.
And to the left, I've got my War Dancers screening the Wild Riders because I really don't want to get my Wild Riders shot down before they've tasted any Dwarven, any Dwarven action. I've made sure I put the War Dancers 27-inch plus away from the anvil. That was the intention anyway,
Yes.
because I don't want them to get killed. And I believe, as it stands, I'm out of range of all your shooting units apart from the Rangers in the middle.
I think
So
so,
there you
yes.
go. There you
Actually,
go. So,
maybe not the Quarrelers, because they have a 30-inch range.
oh
So I
yes,
think it's just them that would be able to shoot. And you've
right.
also, should be noted, that the Tree Man and the Dragon are both large targets, so they can
Hmm.
see and be seen over other troops.
Got you. Got you. I think the other reason I put the War Dancers as a good screening unit because if I get the first turn, I can cast Glittering Robe, giving them a -1 to hit. He's long range, so it's -2, and they're skirmishing unit, so that'd be -3 to hit the War Dancers. And with Andy's bow skill being no better than 3 or 4, makes them a very difficult target to actually hit. So there you go.
Yes, you can see the Rangers in the middle, so the trap has been set. How tempted are you to start attacking the Rangers?
It's a very good tactic, Andy, because as you can see, my army's set up really to try and flank you and not be fishing the barrel in the middle. But you've got a very tempting target there, and also I do need to target those Rangers because they are a very useful unit for you.
Yes, they have some good shooting capabilities.
They're an obvious target for my shooting, so I think the scouts on the hill would probably aim at them if I got the first turn, and I would obviously try and fireball them as
Now,
much as possible.
you can see my hero placement here, and the one thing I'm thinking that maybe could have been different is the BSB, I think, could be on the end of the unit. I don't know whether you have to put them close to the centre. I know you have to put the command models in the centre, but heroes that join units, if they can go on the end, that would probably be a better place for him, because then he's spreading his 6-inch ward save against shooting attacks further. So that's something to think about.
Right, so they weren't in range of that then?
Yeah, because it's only going to be affecting these 3 units as it stands. Whereas if he's on the end, he can potentially hit more of them.
I've got you, yeah. So it's a tricky one, Andy, isn't it, really? Because my job is to try and spread you out and try and pick you off one at a time. And your job is to try and stay as close together as you can.
Yes, so we have to avoid the Wood Elf pincer movement, which is why I've got those shooting units out on the flank, and I'm trying to lure them into the centre. So we've got the gyrocopter that's moved up there as well, with its pre-game 9-inch move.
So do we do the roll off for turns, or did I think I got +1, didn't I? Because I had less units.
You did, but I think you cashed that in to fire your arrow.
Yeah, I did for a laugh, which it came back to haunt me actually. So yeah, I did have the minus. Well, it was even Steams because you get -1 on the roll off if you choose to fire the arrow of Kurnos, which I did, but I needed a 6 to wound, so it didn't work this time. It worked last game. So yeah, turn 1.
Yeah, so the Dwarves are going first.
Yeah.
And the first thing, there is going to be plenty of shooting. I've used the anvil to put an armor buff onto the Rangers, because they're obviously going to come under the most attack next turn. So they can re-roll failed armor saves now.
That's massive.
And I've shot down a couple of your hill dwellers here.
Shot down a couple of the Deepwood scouts already.
Yep, so a couple of those gone. Now, the gyrocopter moved up here, hoping that the anvil could then give it an extra move up to there and then drop its template on these. They're Eternal Guard, that unit there, aren't they?
Yes, behind the forest, yes.
Yes,
no, these guys are Glade Guard.
Those are Glade Guard.
Deepwood Scouts.
Okay, so that was the plan. Now, if I'd taken a different gun, where I could potentially march and still shoot without penalty, I could have marched all the way up here and then shot somebody. But, as it is, it means that I'm stuck here because the anvil actually failed to do that one spell. So I can't drop the template this turn. However, I am in a good position to have charges declared against me, and then I can flee. So that's going to be the plan there.
And that would get me right out in the open.
Yes.
To get done by your Rangers, or to catch me in the middle.
The Quarrelers then unload their crossbows, and look at this. Totally obliterating War Dancers. What do you think about that? The Quarrelers get the War Dancers down to 3 models.
Oh yes, no. What happened, Andy?
Oh no,
We
the three
yeah,
died. Those are the dead ones.
yeah, and I ran away.
Yeah, 3 got killed and then they fled.
Oh my god, the leadership 8. I think I was just out of range of my general, which was a bit daft, really. But yeah, and then they fled, and so I needed to roll an 8, and I rolled something like a 10. So I turned around and fled, and I rolled 8. And had I rolled anything more than that on the roll to run, 8 inches back, I would have been off the table, which would have been horrendous because obviously I got my Shadow Dancer in that unit as well. So luckily, unlucky that I ran away.
That would
Lucky
be a
that I didn't run
terrible
off
start for the
table.
Wood Elves, but it does raise an interesting issue in the old world, and that is when you're deploying, maybe you don't want to be deploying really close to the edge, because if something is able to shoot you and
Yeah.
you manage to run away, you're going straight off the table. And if you've got a friendly unit behind you, then if you can't be placed in the spot that you actually land, you would just keep going over them, and then potentially that could make you run off the table. So
Yeah.
you don't always want to have a unit at the front and then multiple units stacked up behind them, for example.
No. You had what? How many Quarrelers did you have? Something like 12, 15, 10?
Yeah, it's not a huge unit. It is
but
11.
You basically needed 6s to hit, and you got, I think you rolled quite a few 6s, didn't you?
Yes.
And then it's sort of easy, only 3s to wound. So I only get 6-up tattoo save, which didn't help them at all on that occasion.
Imagine if people in real life got a tattoo save.
So at this moment, Andy, I was absolutely devastated because I've not even moved yet, and now my Wild Riders are exposed, especially if the War Dancers do run off the table. So it basically means I'm going to have to hang back now after that devastating volley of Quarreler shots.
Yes. Now, my fighting units have moved up a bit in the centre here, and I've put this unit of 5 Dwarfs behind. So the reason for this is if something charges into the Rangers successfully and then overruns them, they're going to hit this unit of Dwarf Warriors and not one of my powerful units. So that way I could maybe get a flank charge with the Hammerers, perhaps. So that's what we're looking at here. That's what that unit's for. It's no good always just screening with a single unit, because then if they overrun into you, they'd still count as charging you the next turn. Whereas if you've got another unit to absorb the blow, and then you can maybe look for flanks. So there's all kinds of weird angles and manoeuvring you can look for into the Wood Elf turns. There have been a few casualties, but I see that your tree man has given himself a 5-up ward save with a spell. You're staying outside of the Anvil's dispel range here, aren't you?
Yeah, it was really nice writing down the spells in the order in which to cast them, because I can do that ward save in the enchantment phase, which is at the sort of start of the turn, after you do any leadership tests and whatnot. So first thing, cast that enchantment spell, wait for the shooting phase, and then shoot the fireball, and then if there's any, and then I can do my vortex spells as well. So yeah, 5-up save, very useful. So that gives me it counts as having full plate armor. So that's a 4-up he's got, and then 5-up regeneration save and a 5-up ward save, and 6 wounds, is it? So tasty.
Yes, and now we can see that you've, with these beautiful old world style charge declaration markers, Tree Man and the Dragon both declared charges on the gyrocopter, who fled all the way back here, and obviously it's very fast, so it got a good distance and was not caught by either of them, so they don't move up to their maximum. Now, there is one part of the rules that we got wrong here. So after they charged, after scanning the rules, I couldn't actually find anything in there that stated that you can't cast magic missiles or any other spells in the shooting phase after a failed charge, because the rule that states that you can't is not necessarily in the section you would expect it to be in. So it is in there, but it's not in the charge section. I don't think in the charge section it outright states if the unit charges it can't do and then lists things, because it definitely says that if you march, you can't then do anything in the shooting phase.
Mm-hmm.
So when these two cast spells in a minute, they shouldn't have been able to do that because of the declared charges. Now, you probably
right.
just wouldn't have declared the charges, knowing that you wouldn't have then been able to cast magic missiles or vortexes, or vortices, should I say.
Oh, that's good to know. So basically, I declared those charge, wanted to run down that gyrocopter, failed the charge, and then I cast a spell, and I shouldn't have been able to cast that spell because
Yes.
I'm running into combat, basically.
But knowing that, you probably wouldn't have even tried to charge it, would you? Because you've got a lot of spells to cast, and you were never going to catch it.
I might have done it with one of the units.
Maybe.
I might have charged it with one of them, yeah. So, yeah, that's what we're playing these games for, isn't it? To learn the rules.
It sure is. And it looks like you've moved your eagle all the way up to the edge of the woods there, ready to strike at the Thunderers, potentially.
Yeah, I have. I've put him in the woods there. But yeah, I thought he couldn't be seen in the woods, and actually that's wrong. It's just a -1 to hit, which was a little bit of a mistake, really, because I probably should have flown him, if possible, just out of your shooting arc, which would have then made you turn to have to shoot me, and that might have put you down as a penalty then, yeah?
We have got Dave Kitely in the chat, who is really rooting for Rem in this game. Now,
yes. And Leicester City, of course.
Yes.
Still in the mix.
Now, if you can make Thunderers or Quarrelers turn round, then that is a big deal, because a lot of the Dwarven weapons are ponderous, which means that they're -2 to hit when they move. Not the Iron Drakes, but a lot of the others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It looks like everyone else has moved up, but not too drastically fast.
You probably would have took the shot at the eagle anyway, wouldn't you? So it'd be like you need 6s to hit, but it having only 3 wounds, with your amazing dice rolling, you'd probably roll a few 6s, wouldn't you?
Yes. Now, because you're so terrified of the Anvil of Doom, is that why your whole army is so far away from me at the moment?
Yes. I've been very prejudiced, I suppose, against the Anvil, because in the last 2 games he's absolutely devastated me. So perhaps I've been a bit too cautious this time. And in hindsight, I shouldn't have been so worried, because I should be using my tree man to get in range of your spells so I can attempt to dispel them, because I am 1 level higher than you.
Yes.
Your Anvil being level 3 and my Ancient being level 4.
Now, I can understand caution, because if you move your wizards into range to dispel the Anvil, that's all good and proper. But the Anvil can then try and dispel all your spells as well at +3. So that could stop some of your spells. Yes. And Wood Elves being mostly toughness 3, the magic missiles from the Anvil that don't roll to hit, so it doesn't matter if you're skirmishers. So any of your skirmishing units are quite vulnerable to magic missile attacks. So I can understand your caution. Mm-hmm. With a small unit in particular that wouldn't like to absorb, say, 4 casualties from an Anvil.
No.
Now, nothing too exciting going on except some spells, which, as we established, shouldn't be combined with a charge. But you've got some fireballs going off here, I think, and you're trying to bring down this gyrocopter. So what's your plan here? Focus firing on this thing.
Focus firing on what again?
On the gyro.
Yeah, I think I did. I probably I shot my fireballs and my Deepwood Scouts into the gyrocopter. I think part of this is because your Rangers had the re-roll save, so I wasn't going to let you just let you do that, because I thought I'm not going to take out many Rangers if that's the case. The fireball doesn't have any armor piercing, you see. So you would get a 4-up re-rollable on your Rangers. So I thought, well, let's get that gyrocopter out of the action, because it doesn't have the re-roll save. That was my thinking anyway.
Yes, and you've also put a vortex down here as well.
Yes, which again would have been illegal, because I've tried to charge you, didn't I?
Yeah, so what does this vortex do again?
So this is the pillar of fire. You place it up to 12 inches away from your caster. You place it down, see if the spell goes off. It was out of range of your anvil, I think. So yeah, it went off, and basically in the sub-phase move, which now would be at the start of your turn, I believe, right? I roll a d6 and I can move it d6 any direction I want, and it remains in play. And any unit it goes through as it moves, right, takes a number of quite tasty hits. I think it's a d3 plus 3, strength 3 hits.
So that's quite terrifying, obviously.
Armor piercing 2, and it remains in place. So it's kind of like you'd have to then avoid that. So it's a nice little great roadblock. Look at that.
Yes, and you can see that one of the Thunderers has been shot down as well, but that's nothing to worry about for them just yet. And then suddenly, though, with another unit shooting at them, they're down 4 models, which is quite significant.
Yeah.
And then
that would have been a fireball from the Sisters of Thorn.
Yes, now all of this is out of the dispel range of the anvil, so the only hope I've got is the once per turn fated dispel, which of course isn't very powerful and you've got to use it at the right time.
Yeah.
So what I'm looking for with a fated dispel is a spell that goes off but with a very low roll. So that's the plan with the fated dispel. That's the best time to use it because you're quite likely to stop it rather than just wasting it chasing a double 6 on one of the first spells cast.
That makes sense. So so you let me roll it, then you declare a fated, or do you have to declare if you're going to try and stop it or not?
You decide whether to try and dispel it once you see the casting roll.
Ah, well, that totally makes sense. You do that then. I think the Glade Riders might have took a couple of wounds.
Yes.
From the Thunderers as well, because they've got Hagbanes.
Then your scouts on the hill, they actually do the final wound to the gyrocopter.
Ah, impressive.
So the gyrocopter is dead.
Fantastic.
Wow.
That was the bane of my life last game. So
yeah, you definitely did a better job dealing with it. I think in the last game, there were some comments critical of your inability to deal with the gyrocopter in that game, and it just allowed it to drop multiple flame templates on your archers.
Yeah, that was a bit daft, but yeah, I think me taking out your most maneuverable unit in the first turn is very important. Now the dwarves are stuck on movement 3, so yeah, it helps me dictate the play a little bit now, especially now I've started to learn to use vortex spells as well.
Now, what I'm observing from my point of view here is that Rem is just running away from the Iron Drakes and the Anvil because he's just terrified of both of those. So he's kind of moving his whole army this way. Anything that comes down this side is going to get Iron Draked and Anvil to death. But if they're hiding behind the woods, they're certainly not. And if they're all the way over on this side, then they're certainly not. So I can understand the strategy.
But it looks like I'm being funneled down the middle now, which is exactly what you wanted, isn't it?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we've got some nice cinematic shots of the Quarrelers here. And there you go. You can see some action. You can see Annie's book collection there as well. And on to turn 2 for the Dwarves. So immediately, because I'm not in range of the wizard who cast this vortex, then it just flies itself over some of my units and kills a few models.
Yeah, killed some rangers. It killed 2 rangers, and it killed 2 out of 5 of those dwarves.
Yes.
Warriors that were behind them.
And it's still there as well.
Yeah.
So that's
I think you passed
annoying.
you passed all your checks, didn't you? I think when War Dancers passed their leadership test, so they're back in the mix.
Yes, your War Dancers have turned round and come back. Now, I am going to do some shooting, of course. So my Thunderers kill off a couple of these, and I always get them mixed up. Which unit is this?
Oh, these are my Sisters of Thorn. I was gutted when you shot them, and I always fail their ward save. So, 4 up ward save. You think at least I'd save 1, but no, 2 of them are gone, and I do pass the leadership test to stay.
Yes, and then the Rangers, who you'll notice I have rebuffed with the anvils. They've still got the buff. They shoot down another one of your scouts, which is not a very exciting return. The anvil. Look at that.
Oh my god.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm pretty sure it killed a wood elf with every single one of the hits that it did. Because it was
Well, I think you
wounding
rolled,
them on threes.
I think you rolled 4 dice, Andy, instead of the 2 dice. It should be 2d6 strength 4 hits, right?
It should be.
You rolled. But anyway, I'm not.
It's
sure
entirely possible because when I look at the, let's look at the anvil stats here, the way it's laid out. Because I think there is a 4 that's very prominent in there, so it is possible. But either way, it's killed 8 of them.
Yeah, I mean, I was absolutely gutted because I do love my Eternal Guard, and there's only 15 of them, and more than half have been killed. But I am wondering, one is, why did I put them in range of the anvil? The only reason I can think of is that I thought you couldn't see me because I was behind the wood.
Well, that's something we need to check on as well, actually, because you're in the woods, but there is quite a bit of wood between you and the anvil, so should it be able to see that far through the woods? That's something we need to check in the rulebook as well.
I mean, it should be at least -1 to hit if I was in the wood, and it's long range, but they're automatic hits, so...
Yes.
Yeah.
So, the anvil does some serious pain inflicting there. You'll notice that the Trollhammer torpedo-wielding Iron Drakes have realised, actually, the battle isn't taking place over there anymore, so let's go this way. And they move over here, and then the anvil actually uses the conveyance rune to move them again, so they get even closer to the enemy. So they will be able to get involved at some point. And everyone else is moving up kind of a little bit. I don't want to go too far because there's this thing here I don't want to step on. But I also want to get in position to countercharge when something hits these ranges, which I feel like it may well do soon. Because if it's just a straight up shooting match with no combat at all, I'm probably going to kill more stuff than the Wood Elves are. Now the spells could definitely do some good damage, but in terms of just standard missile attacks, then I've definitely got the advantage.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the wood that I placed down, and it is like, thank God Wood Elves can place a wood, because if it wasn't for that, I'd be totally exposed. My whole army pretty much would be exposed to your shooting there.
Yes, because the targets that I've got in the centre are very high toughness compared to the puny Wood Elves on either side. Got nice cinematic shots of the Iron Breakers there, surveying the battlefield. And on to Wood Elf turn 2. So Dwarf turns can be very quick. And you've declared a charge into the Rangers with your dragon.
Absolutely. So I thought, look, I'm not going to mess about. After the casualties suffered by the War Dancers, casualties suffered by the Eternal Guard, they're devastating. I did roll the leadership test to stay because I could roll all the General's leadership, which is 10. So they are still in the mix, you know, even though they're diminished. I thought, right, I'm not having that. I'm going to just... I don't care if you do a stand and shoot. Yeah, just get into that combat.
Were those 2 wounds inflicted from the stand and shoot? It looks like it.
Yes.
Yeah, so 2 wounds done with the stand and shoot, which is nice.
Yeah.
And you've got an eagle charging into the Thunderers as well, who also takes 2 wounds from the stand and shoot.
Gutted. Stand and shoot is unbelievable, especially with dwarven crafted weapons, because normally it'd be -1 to hit.
Yes.
But they don't suffer that penalty, which is crazy, man. So yeah,
and
luckily the eagle survived with 1 wound left to make the charge.
So here's quite a complicated aspect of the rules. When you charge into a skirmisher unit, they have to form up. But I think it's slightly wrong here. So what you're supposed to do is not have a supporting fighting rank down the sides at all with skirmishers. So you form up as many as can fit into combat, and then after that you just start ranking them up behind.
So they don't get the rank bonus?
They never get a rank bonus anyway as skirmishers, but that's how you're supposed to set them up when you're in combat. So you wouldn't have like 100 skirmishers wide, they get charged, and then they would have to form up behind however many you're touching.
Yeah.
So that's how it's supposed to work. So I think these 2 technically should have formed another rank, possibly. Except I don't know if they can actually, because the Dwarf Warriors are there, so this is probably correct. So we've got combat there, probably going to lose that, but the dragon may not kill all of them. So the plan is still on.
Yep.
And your tree man is staying out of the anvil's dispel range to fire off more spells.
Yes, he wants to keep that. After seeing the results of the fireball and the vortex, I'm like, I want some more of that. So I did move forward a little bit, but kind of forward, but still away from your anvil, if that makes sense. Because you can understand my hesitation with the anvil, that you've seen the wounds it caused. But then Andy did remind me that, I can shut down that spell with a dispel potentially. And even if I fail the dispel and he gets the Wrath and Ruin spell off against my tree man, it is toughness 6, so he would be needing 6 to wound at strength 4.
Yep, so that's quite
so-
terrifying. And speaking of
Yeah.
terrifying, the eagle, the classic eagle, has made it into the Thunderers. So we'll see if that can do
Fantastic.
anything.
I'm so glad about that, because I did want to see how it fares in combat.
And then the Vortex moves across some of my units,
Oh, I love that vortex.
takes
love it.
out 3 Quarrelers.
Did it take any Iron Drakes out?
It did not kill any Iron Breakers,
Iron Breakers,
so they're
no.
fine.
No.
And you can see they're closing in. So if I start to commit here, suddenly I'm exposing flank charges on the hammerers. So that wouldn't be good. And 1 hammerer gets shot down as well. And 3 hammerers, in fact, because these 2 units are unloading their missile attacks and fireball.
Yeah,
so 3 hammerers go
and
down.
You've got the javelins, poison javelins, and you've got the poison hagbane tips there. I am wondering, Andy, when I look at your army, why didn't you put the iron breakers right at the front? You know what I mean, and head them straight into combat, because they've got such a good armor save, haven't they? And they've got the king in there. I'm wondering why you didn't put them as far forward as possible to start with.
They have, but I still don't want to get them flanked by any of your cavalry.
Yeah, they'd probably still survive it, though. And anyway, I'm just wondering. I'd like to see them in combat more, that's all.
Yes, because it is difficult to get the dwarf units into combat. If you start marching straight down the centre of the table, 6 inches a turn, the enemy can move away from you, and suddenly they're all looking at your flank and rear. And you're just out there unsupported in the middle of the table.
So you can see here, I've totally shut down the right-hand side of his shooting, tying him up with the eagle and setting myself up for a flank charge with the Glade Riders there, and some in range of getting my fireball off from the Sisters of Thorn, and some tasty shooting.
That's what you think, but
yeah, that's what I think.
The eagle kills a thunderer, and then one of the thunderers punches the eagle in the beak, and the eagle is dead. Last wound taken.
The eagle has disbanded.
And the thunderers then reform on the spot, so they're now facing down this unit, which I want to shoot next turn.
Unbelievable. So thunderers, amazing. Kill the eagle. And
now ready to unleash their lead.
Oh, it's horrible.
And 6 rangers are killed by the dragon, which is a good return there.
Yeah, I did. I fluffed a lot of attacks with the actual Glade Lord because I didn't put a magical weapon on him. So he was just weapon skill 8, fantastic. But strength 4, toughness 4 with your armor saves. He didn't do much, but the dragon certainly did with its wicked claws and serrated maw and stomp attack.
So you then force the rangers back. They're forced to give ground because they don't fail their leadership test, and then you follow up on them. And
so going to plan there, Andy, isn't it? Going to plan. You're tying up the unit there.
There's an interesting issue that's going to come up in a moment, which I'll go into in more detail at the start of my turn. So this is the overview of the battlefield. A lot of the Wood Elf units are staying back hiding. You can see the War Dancers are actually coming back into the game now. So the encirclement from the Wood Elves taking place on this flank, but on this flank I've got Iron Drakes ready to do a bit of encircling of my own, and anything that comes through on this side has the Anvil to worry about as well. The dragon is now in range for spells with the Anvil, but the dragon is in combat, of course, so it can't be doing any dispelling. I think the tree man is still outside of dispel range, so the Anvil still has a free reign at the moment.
So I can't use my Ruby Ring of Ruin in combat, can I?
No, because it's not an assailment spell. Now, here's my issue. The Hammerers want to charge the dragon, but they can't. So, when we check, we do actually discover that they are in the flank of the dragon, which means that if I can get up there and wheel enough to make contact with the dragon, that can be a successful charge, because you can't fail a charge from the distance of closing the door with the unit, is how I read it.
Oh, so we needed quite a big roll still to make that charge.
Well, they would be moving up there, and then a wheel, not a very big wheel, and then into there, touch, and then you would close the door without paying any inches for that. However, they're so wide, and this terrain is here, so when we check, they actually can't fit through the gap because that many rangers survived. And there's one poking out the end there.
So is that because of my tactically placed dragon when it charged? I put him just in the right position so you couldn't do that counter charge.
I think it's entirely down to the amount of rangers that have survived and the width of this hammer unit. Now, if I'd given them drilled upgrade, which means you can reform or redress the ranks before doing a move, I could have then made them more narrow so that they could have actually made that flank charge. And
why were you making them like 8, 10 models wide to start with?
They're 8 wide because when you hit them, you're going to be on high initiative, so you're going to go first, and they don't have very good armor, so you'll probably kill a few. So to strike back with enough models, I want to be wider to have more supporting attacks. But you can see the downside of that here. So what I'm thinking is that if you're going to run them wide and you have them drilled, that means that if there's a situation like this where you need to get them through a smaller gap, you can redress the ranks, and you could then maybe move 5 wide, and then I could have made the flank charge there while it can't flee because it's locked in combat.
Yeah, I totally see that, and you'd be paying 15 points for that, wouldn't you? 1 point per model.
Yeah, so it's not much at all for that massive flexibility in the unit.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, they're not going to get in, which means that the Rangers are probably going to get killed during my turn, which is bad because the Dragon can then pick and choose where to go next. If you're going to lose a unit, you want to lose it on the opponent's turn so that then you can react. If you lose it on your own turn, then they then have extra freedom to fly off wherever they want.
Do you think the Hammerers could have took out that Dragon?
Taking it out is a tough thing to say, but they can definitely do damage to it because they have high weapon skill, strength 6.
Yeah.
And on the charge, they would be on initiative 6 as well.
Fantastic. So you definitely get a few wounds in there. I think it's got 9 wounds altogether.
Yeah, so they would have a realistic chance of winning the combat. And even if they didn't, they would do some good wounds and start whittling you down. And of course, the Rangers have great weapons as well, so whichever unit you targeted, the other ones hitting you back have potential to do some wounds.
Yes, like it.
However, the Rangers do get eaten, and the Dragon then restrains, so it doesn't overrun into these warriors, which means that on your turn you're going to be free to fly off and do whatever you want. So the Rangers have been eaten.
Very important that when I did that restrain roll that I passed that.
Yes.
If I failed that.
If you failed it and ended up stuck in with the Dwarf Warriors, you would have had to eat them on your own turn, and then I could have charged you on my turn.
Yes. Yeah.
And
so I killed the Rangers.
This is what we say anyway, but that is your restrain roll, I think.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yes, right. I needed a 10, leadership 10 to restrain it, and he failed it.
Yep. So a roll of an 11, so he does actually overrun into the Dwarf Warriors.
Oh, so now it's turned. Now Andy can get in, surely.
Yeah, you can see now that it's on my turn, I've actually changed the width of my hammerers.
Yeah.
So I will get another go to attempt to charge there. Now, what I should have done, probably, instead of doing that, is move up closer to the Dragon. Because it's going to eat these warriors, and then I'll have a much smaller charge to make. So if it flees, there's a higher chance of me catching it.
And I can see you've moved your 5 warriors on the left there, getting ready for a flank charge. Assuming I kill the warriors fighting the dragon, you've got your iron breakers ready to taste some dragon action too.
Yes.
And you've turned your quarrelers round there to face anyone coming down the middle, I assume.
Yes, because that's where all the action is as far as I'm concerned. And I also want to open up lines of sight for the anvil as well.
Were you worried about that vortex? Is that why you lined out your quarrelers, or did you manage to dispel it?
I think
you dispelled it.
I might have got rid of the vortex now, because I think was it the dragon that cast it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the dragon's in range now, so I was able to dispel it. And
no, the dragon didn't cast it, sorry, the tree man did.
Maybe I might have used a Can you use Fated Dispel in your own turn? Or I might have got the Runesmith in range, maybe?
Yeah, I think your Runesmith would have been in range. He's with the hammers, isn't he?
He's with the
Isn't he?
he's with the Ironbreakers there, so he may well have been within 18 inches to do it.
Yeah, it looks about right, yeah.
And here, the Thunderers, you can see, have been shooting at your cavalry there and taken 2 of them out.
Unbelievable. There's 3 of them out, I think. Was it 2?
I think
2
it's
of them
2.
out. He shot two poor Glade Riders got shot down. It's not devastating because there's still 6 left. So here's one, Andy. Yes. It's your turn. So you did a shoot. So on my turn, if I charge you, you can do another stand and shoot, can't you?
Yes, they will be able to stand and shoot. So I haven't been able to get much accomplished in this turn because the Wood Elves are mostly standing off, which is probably a good idea. They really want to just pick an easy target, swoop in there, kill it, and then get out of harm's way again and not fight any of these big blocks. That's the dream for the Wood Elves. So on to the turn 3 for the Wood Elves. And so there's a spell which the Runesmith attempts to dispel and rolls a double 1. Which is hilarious, but I think he may actually still succeed in dispelling it, because you roll on the miscast table, but sometimes if you roll high, that just means that you successfully dispel it, but maybe you can't dispel again for that turn.
I was really hoping he would fail the dispel and blow up his whole unit. That would be the ultimate.
The giant template going there would not have been great for the dwarves at all.
But yeah, I think the only penalty was something like maybe you couldn't cast or you couldn't
do any more dispels in the turn.
Yeah,
and you've moved your elves and your tree man up into an aggressive position now. So the tree man's obviously thinking, the anvil, it's no good just hiding from that for the whole game. You've got to get in there.
Yes, that was the thinking, especially after I've already lost half my unit of Eternal Guard. So I either keep them back and preserve the points, or try and do something. I thought, well, if I move them forward with the support of the tree man, at least he's got his dispel, and he's got a whole bunch of attacks he can do. So I think the tree man is in range now to do his strangle root shooting attack, plus his fireball, plus the vortex. So it's suddenly looking quite positive right now. Anyway, I move the war dancers forward, gutted about those Glade Riders, and they need a panic check, don't they?
Well, let's have a look. So your tree man uses his strangle root attack, I think, and kills a couple of quarrelers.
Yeah.
Then this massive beast of a template. I think you were about to drop this on somebody. But
what's that? The big? Oh, is that the tree singing, or is that the vortex?
It's a giant vortex you're about to put down, I think. But the anvil rolls a nice dispel roll and gets rid of it.
Oh, I would have loved that to have gone off. Yeah, it would have been pretty cool. However, your Iron Drakes do have a lot of protection against fire-based attacks, don't they? So
they do. And you've killed the warriors. You've turned around a bit. So these 2 dwarf units that can potentially charge you.
Yeah.
If you flee, on average, they should get nowhere near catching you. But there are 2 of them, so you never know. And
so I have turned to face at an angle, so you can't flank me, basically.
Yes.
Apart from those warriors on the side, but I'm not worried about them.
A few more Thunderers have been killed off as well now, as a result of your shooting attacks.
Yes, but not as many as I wanted, and I did want them to run off the table.
Well, what's happened here? I can tell you that when you attempted a charge onto the Thunderers, with this unit here,
you've got 4 left, and I'm charging them with 4.
I think I killed 2 with the stand and shoot, and you then ran off the table.
Oh my god, I couldn't believe it. So he's shot 2, they've passed the leadership test. I decided to charge with them, probably a bad move, I guess. Now I'd pay points for these guys to be have reserve move. So in the last turn, could have shot and then moved them again. Maybe
you could have moved them. You could have moved them close enough to avoid a stand and shoot reaction. Yes.
Yeah, I kept forgetting that rule. So how close do you have to be
within your movement characteristic?
Oh, I could have totally done that.
So the only unit that wouldn't work against would be the Iron Drakes.
Well, that does, looking at it from here, they have movement 9, so...
Yeah, you could have easily moved to here.
I probably would be in your. Yeah. Do you think that's more than 9 inch away? Maybe we forgot that.
Yeah, I think they
That looks
were.
like it's within 9. Whichever way.
You could have
2 of
easily
them
got them there if you'd remembered your rules, though.
Yeah. 2 of them got shot on the stand and shoot by only 4 Thunderers. And then I failed my leadership test because I thought if I could get into combat with them, I think I could take them out with my cavalry spears. So it'd give me an extra strength on the attack. And the hooves. I think I could take them off the table, but you shot me. I failed my leadership test. And the Glade Riders, oh, they turn and run. I
Running
couldn't
away.
believe it.
And we're into the dwarf turn now.
And not only run away, but they run off the board.
Yep, easy points for the dwarves there.
Absolute disaster. 4 Thunderers kill over 150 points. And now look at the Sisters of Thorn. They're totally left on their own.
Oh yeah, we should point out that your unit here did kill my dwarf warriors and overrun them.
Yeah.
In the previous turn.
3, 6, 7. Yeah, they didn't lose any men, actually. I think I rolled quite well on the saving throws of those. But yeah, the Turner Guide ran in, even though they don't get any bonuses if they charge. They don't get their rank bonuses anyway.
You'll see here the dragon has fled. And look how far it went. It fled an obscene distance. So obviously these little dwarf legs have got no chance of catching it.
I think I absolutely made the right decision there. I'm not, after seeing what Andy's capable of doing with the stand and shoot, what could he do with the charges of those 2 big Death Star units?
So
the tree man's exposed there, but I think I'm out of range of a charge.
And the reason my dwarf warriors did actually is because they also attempted to charge into the dragon, but he went out of range, so they then did a leadership test and redirected their charge into this unit, but it obviously didn't go well because they got run down and killed. And the reason I wanted to do that was to block this unit in to keep them away from the quarrelers. But that's not going too well.
You can see I've got a bit more of a go for broke attitude now. The War Dancers have come back into the mix. Kind of, I'm hoping I'm out of line of sight of your shooting units right now. But the Wild Riders, I've got to go for broke. I've got to get them in combat somehow. They have got quite a long movement. But I've got to close that gap, and I've got to suffer a stand and shoot in some respect. Hopefully, I can shut down your Wrath and Ruin from the anvil with my tree man. Anyway,
I don't get much accomplished on my turn. It looks like you do end up rallying this guy as well, quite easily. Your dragon, and you're then able to charge into the flank of my quarrelers. Because I think my last turn was wholly ineffective. I tried to do some stuff to the tree man, but didn't seem to do any wounds to him.
Yeah, I mean, I would have liked to have charged into the Iron Drakes, but you would have got to stand and shoot there, wouldn't you?
Well, you're still going to attempt that in a minute, but you decide that this unit isn't... They're not going to follow the example of their comrades and charge into the front of the Thunderers from stand and shoot range. This unit, you instead decide you're just going to hide out of their view, which is fair enough.
Yeah, I didn't declare charge with both units because I wanted to use the fireball. I think at this point we decided you can't use your spells if you're charging, right?
Yes.
So it was like, well, I want to fire my fireball and I want to fire my 3 javelins, and maybe take out that unit that way. Because if I do get another round of shooting against me, at least I've got my 4-up ward with the sisters, so they might survive it.
Yep, so very little accomplished on my turn there, unfortunately, with the dragon fleeing and all that.
Yeah, I think you can see my Deepwood scouts on the hill. I think from this point onward, their shooting was completely ineffective for the rest of the game. I think I failed to score any kills. I think I got some wounds in, but you managed to save, or I just didn't roll high enough to wound. So those scouts have been depleted from 10 to 5, and I just think 5 archers in a unit. It's very vogue at the minute for Wood Elf players to have lots of units of 5 archers. But they're very ineffective against large units.
Now, your dragon has steamed back into the game and taken up a position outside the woods there.
Steamed back in. Now, would that have been a march? I don't know, because I'd probably do fire a fireball. Can you march and shoot a spell?
No. Well, you can do spells, but you can't do shooting phase spells. So you can't do magic missiles or vortex spells.
Oh.
Now, this unit here, they actually do decide to charge the Iron Drakes.
Yeah.
Which isn't necessarily the best
wise?
idea, because the Iron Drakes can always stand and shoot no matter how close you are, and they don't suffer -1 to hit. They're high ballistic skill, they have really good weaponry, and as a result of that, 4 of them get killed on the way in.
I mean, I was going to say to you, I mean, what else could I have done with those Wild Riders? I couldn't leave them out in the open for another round. What else could I have charged? Could I have got into your Iron Breakers from there?
I don't know if that would have been worth it either. Yeah, I'm not sure there's a particularly juicy target for them, because the Iron Drakes are sure to kill a couple of them on the way in.
Or do I ride around the back of the cottage and try and...
Yeah, that's an option, but then Iron Drakes can just turn around and shoot you. So
yeah, so there you go. I mean, it's good positioning from Andy there. Luckily, one of my Wild Hunter survived.
Makes it into combat. So let's see what it does. And you've moved your war dancers behind the house with the intent that the anvil can't see them because it's so terrifying.
Yes. Yeah, that is true. I just did at this point. I didn't know what to do with the war dancers. They're too far to get into the middle, and they're never going to beat the Iron Breakers. So I kind of didn't know what to do with the war dancers at that point. Just sort of hide them, I suppose. I did consider bringing out the Shadow Dancer out of the unit on his own. But yeah, that's it. So
I believe here my Runesmith has dispelled one of your fireballs on a 6/6, which is nice.
Yeah.
And the Tree Man has a spell dispelled by the Anvil with a nice dispel roll as well, so they're doing quite well. Your archers
all going bad for me this turn.
Your archers shoot 1 more Thunderer, so they're down to 3 now.
Yeah.
And a Hammerer is taken out as well. So you're whittling down the units.
Yeah.
But look at this.
Wow.
So 4 of them were killed with the stand and shoot. My understanding is that stand and shoot does not go into combat resolution. If that's wrong, then we're fools. But my understanding is that it doesn't. So, killed 4 of them. 1 of them makes it into the Iron Drakes. Kills a single Iron Drake in combat. Doesn't take a wound back.
It has. I mean, he's got a decent charge attack. This guy he comes in with like, was it 2 attack space, frenzied 3 attacks, sort of something furious charge. Comes in with 4 attacks.
Yes.
And the stag itself.
So I think we might be both close order, possibly. But I think you won the combat by 1. The Iron Drakes then rolled a 6/6 on their leadership test. So that's great for a dispel, not so great for a leadership. And they ran away, and I think they ran away about 2 inches. And they were caught and killed by the 1 remaining rider.
That's fantastic. I mean, look. How many points did you spend on those Iron Drakes?
They were about 90 points, I think.
And the Wild Riders I paid 161 points. So you are definitely preserving your points. What with the Thunderers, what they've done on the other side, you are definitely at this point. It looks like you're winning the points. That is, I've shot down a gyrocopter and I've killed the Rangers. So far.
Yeah, you've killed a few cheap units, and the Rangers, who are, let me see, 180 points, so that's a decent chunk.
Yeah.
So Iron Drake's gone.
You've killed 2 units of 5 dwarves as well.
The Quarrelers are now embroiled in a fight. They do have to fall back in good order or give ground, I can't remember which, but you're still stuck fighting them now.
Yeah.
Let's see, Dave Catley. Stand and shoot does count to combat res. Gosh darn it. Okay, so I'll have to...
Why did you have to say that, David?
Yes, I'm going to have to remember that for future.
That's terrible.
Yep, so
I would have lost that combat round then.
Yes, they would have lost it massively, so the Iron Drakes would still be alive.
Oh.
Okay, so we'll keep that in mind. And then turn 5 for the Dwarves. So these 2 units are stuck out in the open with nothing to charge because no one wants to go near them. And this is the weakness of the Dwarves, is their very slow speed. Their charges are not going to get very far. So if you really beef up a unit that the enemy doesn't want to fight, they can very easily avoid them, unless you're very clever to tempt them into positions that they don't want to be in. Use all the shenanigans available to you. But I'm thinking that smaller units of dwarves might be a better way to go, rather than taking a big blob that's easily outmaneuvered. So let's see, turn 5 for the dwarves, marching towards the tree man, hoping to fight it next turn. The thunderers start blasting away and kill one of these. The tree man, I don't think I do too much to him, but the anvil, of course, kills this final rider that just ran down the iron drakes horribly.
Yes, I did. I tried to dispel it, but it didn't work. I couldn't dispel it. I would have loved to have preserved that Wild Rider somehow.
Yes, so we've got some nice points there. So yeah, stand and shoot counting towards combat resolution is quite a big deal, actually. And I'm glad I've learned that the day before going to a tournament as well. Because that's quite a big deal for dwarves, because they're doing a lot of standing and shooting. The quarrelers actually do a wound to you, which is nice. And nothing's going to happen in that combat for the moment. And another very short dwarf turn. You get your ward save up on the tree man again. And positioning to try and finish off these thunderers.
Yeah, there's no way I was going to charge into those thunderers. What with what's happened with the stand and shoot so far, so
I don't think you were able to charge them for some reason. Let me go back and look at the shots of where they were. Maybe you could have been able to. I don't know if they were. I don't know if they could have stood and shot at you from that distance. And the dragon makes it into the anvil, so this is going to be a tasty showdown.
This is huge now. Actually getting the dragon into what I consider your most deadly unit.
If you kill the anvil, then you get a nice juicy amount of points there.
Now, I bet you would have loved to have done a stand and shoot with your anvil, wouldn't you?
Yes.
It's a great painted model, by the way. It's great.
And I'm actually going to do something else to it as well, because instead of the golden horns, I'm actually going to paint them as bone horn colour.
Right, okay.
I think that looks better. I've been doing that to all the horns on my army, because it just adds an extra colour to the mix.
Have you got Craggy in his forge?
I did, but I really hated that part of the model, so I sold it.
I like that bit.
I don't know, I just didn't like it, and I didn't know what to do with it. So
but
I sold it.
Craggy does make it so you have 4 people around the anvil, and does it have 4 wounds or 4 attacks?
I don't know whether Craggy currently does anything in the rules, but we'll see when the Arcane Journal comes out. So on your turn, you shoot down all but 1 Thunderer. So he even gets his own little base now as well. Look at that.
I think I did a fireball. It didn't really do that much. I shot my javelins, managed to kill a couple of them.
You've killed some hammerers as well, which isn't very friendly of you. And I think this is the quarrelers that you've killed. Yeah, you ran them off the table and pursued off the table, so you'll be coming back on in a moment.
Got you. So all in all, the Eternal Guard did well. I mean, those Eternal Guard, I thought they were down and out after the Wrath and Ruin decimated them. But they do cost me 265 points, them Eternal Guard. So they are an expensive unit.
They did a good job.
I put the Razor Standard on them as well. So they've managed to kill a small unit of 5 dwarves, eat up some of your shooting, and they've killed a unit of Thunderers. So maybe they've preserved their points.
They've survived as well. So the Anvil takes some wounds in combat from the dragon, so that's not looking too promising for the Anvil. And really, the dwarves are a little bit stuck because we're running out of supporting units, and the big units can't reach anybody, which is sad. And then the Anvil does get killed on the subsequent turn, and the dragon spins round to face the threat. So the Anvil is doomed. And turn 6 for the dwarves. So all I can do really is turn around to face the biggest threats, to not get flanked by a dragon. But really, they don't have to. They can just stand there and pepper away with arrows. And that's all I can do. So turn 6 for the Wood Elves, and no wild charges, just leaping into position.
I think I shoot my breath into your iron breakers, my sulfuric breath.
You do, but not much. Now, this is quite funny. So your 2 spellcaster cavalry move up onto the hill. Try and cast a spell, a fireball, at the final Thunderer who moved off the hill so you couldn't charge him. And you roll a double 1 and cause a calamitous detonation, which drops a template onto the unit. But it only kills one of them.
Yes, that's right. At this point, the game's in the balance. Because if that unit gets destroyed, Andy's took off a lot of points.
Yeah, if that unit dies and the Thunderers live, that is quite a big swing. So, the fact that the Thunderer only has one model left means that after that you can just throw a javelin through his eyeball and he's dead.
Yeah, was he actually running away, or was he?
He was just hiding behind the hill so that you couldn't charge him with the two of them.
I mean, how did that unit just not die or not run away? I don't know.
They kept passing their leadership, and you can see everyone's just moving away at this stage. And a few hammerers and ironbreakers get killed from shooting, but not enough to force a check.
Yeah, it was from the dragon.
Force a panic.
It was from the dragon's breath. Those two ironbreakers died because you don't get an armor save.
Your unit comes back onto the table, and that's the final shot of the game there. So it's a win for the Wood Elves. And yes, so thinking about it, let's see, if we'd played all the rules properly, what would have been different? It's possible that I rolled too many dice for the anvil. So maybe that killed a few more people than it should have done, potentially. There's no video evidence. And the Iron Drakes should have probably won the combat with their stand and shoot against the cavalry, so wouldn't have died. So that's a thing in my favour.
If that would have happened, then I probably would have got into them with the war dance.
Yes. That would have been interesting, actually, because I'm certainly not going to kill all of them in one go.
No, and I do have a dance where I do get -2 armor save.
Yes.
So there is a way that I could have killed you with the war dancers. Yeah, I suppose definitely, because I got my shadow dancer in there as well.
Indeed.
So that may have been okay. Some of those dubious spells I cast when I tried to charge, but I don't know if they destroyed any units. They certainly took some wounds off you.
Now, here's an interesting question as well that I'm probably should be looking up in the rulebook. If stand and shoot counts towards combat resolution, does stand and shoot also force a panic check on the charging unit, or do they just make the charge and then figure out whether they panic if they fail?
Well, you would take the panic check.
Do you take a panic check from stand and shoot? Is the question I'm asking, I think.
I think no, because then you'd have to take two, wouldn't you? One after the stand and shoot, and then another one after the combat.
If you lose the combat. So yeah, that's another thing that I hope someone's looking that up, because it would mean that I have to reach for my rulebook. In fact, you know what? Let's do this properly. I am going to look right now.
Well, but you're getting the bonus from the combat resolution already.
That's what I'm thinking. So I'm going to look right now at stand and shoot and see what it says. It should just tell you in the rules, shouldn't it? Currently searching. So, would you like to discuss how the changes to your list brought about a change in fortunes in this game while I'm looking that up?
Having units that are much harder to kill, like the dragon and the tree man, having a tree man that can dispel the anvil and cast some effective spells was really good. My shooting units, again, weren't decisive at all, I don't think. What was decisive was the dragon being very attack-minded and having the maneuverability to get to multiple units was massive.
Okay, I found the rule, by the way. So, charging units are not required to make panic tests. There you go. So they wouldn't have run off the table.
Yes, but I think they're immune to psychology anyway, Wild Riders. I think. I'll have to just look that up quickly.
So they shouldn't have made a panic check after being reduced after losing more than 25% casualties in a phase. They shouldn't have taken a panic test because it was on a stand and shoot.
Yeah.
So the reason
they're not immune to psychology. They're not. It's war dancers.
Yeah. So the only reason I thought of that is because I don't see why you would get the double benefit of forcing a panic test and then also adding it onto the combat resolution. It seemed like too much. So we've got that cleared up now. And I think if anyone figures out all the rules to the old world within playing like 10 games, I would say they're doing very well, because there's a lot going on here, isn't there?
Yeah. Yeah, it seemed. I mean, it's clearer now, but it was a lot more complicated when we were doing it. Um, yeah,
Yes.
I really enjoyed this game. Maybe it's because I won, but I think in the second game we played, I was very disheartened by the end of the second turn because I knew that I had no chance. But this game really, was like end to end. Could have gone either way at any point,
Yes, the
and nearly did.
dragon really did the business for you, and people are taking dragons, they're taking multiple dragons, and they're seen as the hotness at the moment. And as far as dwarves dealing with them, I think Iron Drakes, Trollhammer torpedoes are like a little mini cannon, so
Yeah,
they're potentially very useful. I might have to start
yeah.
using a second unit of Iron Drakes.
You did try your torpedo your troll hammer torpedo, didn't you? But either it wasn't in range or it didn't. It didn't
I
hit.
think it just missed.
Yeah, so maybe multiple units, or I mean,
Yeah,
I
multiple Iron Drake units, each with a Trollhammer torpedo.
I really want your iron breakers to see more action. I would half the amount in that unit and get them more mobile, or have like 2 units of hammers, 2 units of iron breakers, make them smaller, get them to see some action. Because if you've got if you have almost twice as many units on the table as you did today in this battle report, you'd see much more fighting action, surely, rather than having Death Stars that I avoid.
I don't know, but would they even be able to win a combat if they take them that small? Like 10
Um,
hammerers, for example, they could lose most of that unit when something charges them before they get to
y-
strike.
yeah, but it's durability, so you'd assume they'd survive at least one round, and that would give time for your other units to get involved.
The Ironbreakers certainly would. But there are things to think about here, like the width of the hammerer unit and maybe making them drilled so that they can fit through different size gaps, because obviously that could have made the game very interesting as well if I'd got a flank charge into the dragon. That would have been a big point swing in my favour, and that would have kind of forced you to engage my units chasing the points deficit then, I think, wouldn't it?
Yeah, now let's talk about the War Machine debate. I mean, there's some Dwarven Holds Mountain players saying that they're not overpowered. You've put that to the test. I think they've been very effective against me in the past, especially the organ gun. But you didn't want to take them this game, did you? So do you wish you had?
For this game, no, because it was just a good test of a list without them.
Yeah.
And I took more combat units and a combat king. But I'm thinking, I do like the organ gun. People seem to love the bolt thrower, but it's not enough shots, I think. I think the organ gun, with lots of shots, even though it's quite expensive, I think that's where it's at. It's got high enough strength. So
Yeah, but then you'd want an engineer with it, and so your points are racking up. You'd basically lose some infantry there, wouldn't you? What about multiple gyrocopters? They've always been quite effective, I thought.
multiple gyrocopters are definitely the way to go. That's definitely fact. And the problem is I only own one. So when they bring those back out again, I'll have to get one of the modern gyrocopters and then start running two. And also the long-range gun, I think the clatter gun, is the best one. You pay an extra 10 points for it, but you can march and still shoot with no penalty, and it's a 24-inch range.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, Dwarven shooting is better than the Elves, way better. I mean, Casey, thanks for your comments here. Casey's saying Wild Riders have frenzy, while frenzied, they are immune to psychology. This is true. And then she also says, in my opinion, the fact that stand and shoot counts to combat res, and dwarves don't suffer -1 to hit on stand and shoot, and have a decent amount of quick shot, and bow skill 4/5 for the champion, I suppose, right? Really drives list building for dwarves.
Yes, so I would say the big winners at the moment in the Old World First Edition, essentially Iron Drakes, because they're ballistic skill 4, they can stand and shoot always at any distance, they don't suffer -1. The champion is ballistic skill 5 as well with the Trollhammer torpedo.
Wow, they've got great saving throw.
Yeah, they've got good save, they've got a ward save against flaming attacks.
Yeah. Your Thunderers were pretty effective, I thought.
They were quite good as well. Thunderers and Quarrelers quite good against Wood Elves because of the low toughness. I think Quarrelers may be not quite as great because you look at Rangers and you think the cost difference isn't that huge, and for Rangers you get skirmish, you get to scout them, and you get an extra ballistic skill as well.
I mean, in this game, most enemies are toughness 3, aren't they? If you're fighting Empire, toughness 3. Any kind of elf, toughness 3. Orcs going to be toughness 4.
Yeah, Chaos Warrior is going to be toughness 4.
Yeah.
Humans
Demon.
in general are going to be 3.
Yeah. So, yeah, all in all, dwarves are great in combat. I mean, of great shooting. I mean, stand and shoot is huge.
Well, I think the issue for the
Absolutely
dwarves
huge.
isn't their stats. It's the control that they lack. So,
Yeah.
the anvil, really good at dispelling, but you can decide when it's allowed to dispel, because you can just stay outside of 24 inches and cast all the spells you want. And then, when the time comes in the game when you want to shut down the anvil spellcasting, you can then move to within 24, so you can then start dispelling. And if you're a level 4, then you've got the +1. So there's a good chance you'll shut down some of the anvil spells, so you can kind of dictate the pace with the anvil. So that's what dwarves really lack control. The units that you would want to control a game with, like the gyrocopters, aren't currently readily available. So running a lot of gyrocopters gives you more control of game. You've got a high-speed unit that can hit and run and redirect and fire and flee, and all these exciting things. So adding more of those. Rangers are definitely a control unit because you can put them anywhere on the table and dictate which way the enemy is going to have to look. Perhaps if you put them out on a flank, they have to send something over there. So I think that's the key, looking for ways to control the battlefield, because that's how you're going to get your units with good stats into fights.
If I was going to change anything with dwarves, I would give Slayers movement 4 or even movement 5, because they don't have armor and they're fast for a dwarf. That would make them more inclusive, because at the minute no one seems to want to use Slayers at all.
Well, I'm definitely going to buy some Slayers when they bring them back, but I do understand why people aren't using them, because they are just naked as the day they were born. And
it's such a narrative unit, though. So much fun, really.
Yes.
It's a shame, really, because I think the Slayers are units that would literally. Why have they got the same movement as Ironbreakers, who have got shield and like plate armor?
They've also changed the lore a little bit with the Slayers, and that they don't all have orange beards anymore, which is interesting.
Yeah.
They've got a mixture of beards, which means that my one legendary Slayer who's got half orange, half green beard, that could actually be the inspiration for my whole unit, and I could do them all with one half orange and one half a different colour.
Well, it looks as if we'd be getting a Slayer army, I think. I think they're going to be...
You should be able to run a Slayer army, because they're bringing back the Goblin Hewer.
Yeah.
So surely, and Doomseekers. So I wouldn't be surprised if you can run a Slayer army. That would be very cool indeed, very thematic, and hopefully they make it playable in the game and it doesn't immediately get killed.
Yeah, I just want to see what your Ironbreakers can do in a fight, because I've never seen them in a fight.
Yeah, they're so easy. Dwarf charges are so easy to avoid, especially for Wood Elves. Because whatever I want to fight, you can just flee. And if you've got lots of small units, that's not affecting your battle line that much, because you've still got loads of other units that can still do the job.
Yeah. So when you were placing your units down at the start, when do you put your anvil down?
I put my anvil down late.
Yeah, I bet you do.
But you also, they have to go down last as a hero, but you also put your hero down last, so your dragon would have gone down after the anvil, I think. So yeah, it is definitely an option to put it dead in the centre, but I think most of your game plan was to go around the flanks anyway, wasn't it?
It has to.
So you could have avoided the anvil that way. So I think putting it slightly to one side meant that you couldn't really get anything down the left-hand side without running into it, and you were so scared of it, you ended up only really trying to flank on this side, which was kind of a 50-50 battle over on this side anyway. With those Thunderers did a really good job against you.
Yeah.
Let's see. Keep in mind the Clattergun multiple shots gives -1 to hit, and BS3 means you'll be hitting at 5s at best, often 6s. Steam Gun generates a lot of hits, which is nice against weak troops. That is true, but the Steam Gun can't march and still shoot, so getting into position can be tricky. But if you are against an army that has, like, Goblins or Wood Elves, where they're a unit, anything like 15 of them on the smallish bases, nothing's on that smaller base now, but the smaller bases, if you got like 15 in a unit, you can get some good coverage there. So there is definitely a place for the Steam Gun. It's something to look at and play around with, though. I think the gyrocopter's offensive output isn't necessarily its strongest point. I think the fact that it's cheap and really fast in a dwarf list makes it very interesting. It does impact hits as well, so it's not terrible at taking out chaff units in combat, for example. And yeah, I think it's time to wrap this one up, Mr. Rem. So you've got your first old world win. Are you feeling positive going forward? And what's the future of your list looking like now?
Very positive. Definitely going to stick with high level wizards, whether it's a tree man or a spell singer. Going to stay with the dragon for a while at least. It is a huge point sink though. If I buffed up the dragon, I'd definitely get the Glade Lord with a more powerful weapon, so he's dealing out some more damage. Disappointed with the shooting of the Wood Elves. I still love the Wild Riders, even though they get absolutely caned when they get shot. It's all about that charge. I might consider a Glade Lord on a stag and put him in the Wild Rider units to make them even more of an effective charge unit.
I'll tell you two things you do need in your list. First of all, you need to make your list legal.
Yep. True.
And secondly, you really need a BSB.
Yes. Yep. So the natural place for the BSB is probably going to be in the Eternal Guard, I guess. They're brilliant. The Eternal Guard never let me down. Yeah.
Excellent. Now, after this game, I did play one more practice game yesterday, actually, against honest wargamer Rob and his Chaos Warriors. So I'll report on that game at some point soon.
Oh, wow.
And
great.
I took a bolt thrower and a grudge thrower in that game. Tried out some different things. I tried going without the Anvil of Doom as well. I used a Rune Lord on foot, but gave him some dispelling buff runes as well.
Yeah.
And I have, based on that game, I've made up my list for the tournament this weekend, which I'm looking at now. And I do need to actually finish painting the crew for my second organ gun, which means that my list has 2 organ guns in it.
So you didn't miss the Anvil? Or did you
I
miss
kind of did. So the Anvil has made it back in for my first tournament list. But some other things are not making it in.
Right.
And yeah, people can see me reporting on that either Sunday night or possibly Monday.
Well, I would definitely tune in for that, Andy.
Yes, that's going to be 5 games of the old world, hopefully against a variety of different armies in a competitive setting, so we'll see some kind of nonsense going on. There's all kinds of things I'm hearing about already, such as casting 2 vortexes or 2 vortices, and then because they can't land on top of each other because they're considered terrain, when it moves, it will then bounce over another vortex. So it'll move even further. So if you have a long line of vortexes, they can like hop over each other and travel obscene distances. So all kinds of weird shenanigans that you only really see in competitive play. And then once you've seen it, you're then aware of it, so you look out for it in future. So we'll see what kind of weird tricks I come up against this weekend. So if anyone has any last-minute tournament tips for using dwarves, then drop them into the comments, preferably before the morning when I start playing. And don't forget to like this video, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to check out all the links in the description, including the various social media shenanigans. There's Facebook group, there's Twitter, there's Discord server, all just teeming with activity. And of course, if you want this channel to keep producing red hot, sizzling, spicy, tender, succulent, moist, finger-licking good content, then why not pledge your entire life savings via Patreon or PayPal, which is mostly going to pay for me to attend slightly more tournaments and then reporting on them with my findings. And if you're interested in seeing tournament reports, this weekend there's going to be Old World. Next week there's going to be 2 Kings of War tournaments in the same weekend to report on. And then later on in the month there's another Old World tournament as well. And more Old World battle reports coming at you as well. That's the hotness at the moment. That's what I'm playing quite a lot of, since it's so new and fresh. Got to get those rules nailed down into my brain by playing it as much as possible. So, any final words, Mr. Rem, before we end this live stream?
Yeah, as usual, great game. It's been a great pressure, Andy. Thank you. It's been great working against you.
Yes, it has been a delight figuring out all the rules that we've played wrong, and learning as we're all doing at this point, since I think this is only my 3rd or 4th game of Old World at the time, this. So everybody's learning, and we're learning together. And only by making the mistake once can you learn not to do it again. So, all that remains to be said is, good night out there, whatever you are.